Hello. I'd like to talk about identity, self, belonging, and skepticism. Skepticism, I find, is a topic that links all these ideas together in an interesting way. Skepticism is a family of philosophical views that question the possibility of knowledge. I'd like to further add that philosophical skepticism exists whether one deliberately chooses to deny the conventions of the world around them or tries to search for meaning through an outsider's perspective. Now, it's important to note what an outsider's perspective actually is, because in some communities you might be considered to be an outsider, but in others you might belong. And in fact, you're no longer an outsider, it's just the convention which defines you as such. Some philosophers thought they resolved this issue of skepticism, at least in the way of the ancients. But I would like to talk about the importance of this point of view still, in noting what it means to find yourself in a positive way, to have sources of meaning, to enrich your internal world. And I find that this is what's really important about addressing skepticism in general. So I'd like to include a couple quotes that I've written that might elucidate a little bit on what I mean by skepticism. I notice that there's a shift of the individual perception to another. I tried to explain it, but I just confront myself in a total solipsism. Even when I have only indirect knowledge of the world, I feel like the world is responding to my understanding. My initial reaction is based on subjectivity. The outsider relies on their inner projection of the world, which reflects their experience, to illustrate how they believe the external world is shaped around them. As I mentioned, the perspective of the skeptic or outsider can be very restrictive, making it hard to function within it in some circumstances. It even becomes difficult to recognize this perspective when you are part of it. However, I find that in philosophy, the idea that an internal world exists at all is challenged. Most philosophical schools generally demonstrate that knowledge can only be obtained from the external world. They reveal that the source of our understanding is found only outside ourselves. In my view, both skepticism and the external perspective can be limiting. I have a dream of something I want to believe, something that can release me from what I already know, something that can allow me to be free from the present moment. Personally, I've been searching for the means to access that which can reveal what is at the core of individual experience that brings meaning and value to ideas, why it matters in the first place, and how this elucidates our impression on the world. What I mean by personal experience is a form of introspection. It's about the role of the individual in a journey toward authenticity, which we confront in our response to the outside world. So for me, this has a very personal meaning. Even though the sources of skeptical thought cannot be directly considered in relation to the outside world, we can realize that with careful direction and self-monitoring, the freedom of possibility in one's inner world serves an important purpose in gleaning information about the external world. We often believe that it's the other way around, that the external world is only what provides us with knowledge of how things are, and that is the source of our understanding. I would like to elaborate a little bit on what I mean by sources in a poem I've written. Presence. I thought I knew all along. I just couldn't see the connections or the source, the outline of a world. That is all that appears to me now. I try to be here, focused on the present. But now there are things I cannot know. It chokes me. Something that shatters my world. Its contents is missing. Its context is there, but it's outside me. Sometimes there is a window into my present need. Yes, all my experiences and things around me shape my perception. Beyond that, I extend my reach outward. Some may deny this claim by noting that the sources of skeptical thought are irrelevant, and the idea that there are sources at all is just part of the skeptical confusion. But I beg to differ. I don't believe that skepticism is a productive or useful way to understand the world, but to recognize the validity of the outsider's point of view, and crediting them with their own understanding of their internal world, is necessary to overcome what one deems to be the source of difficulty, which is what I express in this poem. I have another as well. Perceptions. I've gone beyond this point. The world reveals itself to me in a new way. Something here, I believe, is entirely different. Yet I still hold on to those dreams in these troubled times. In the end, I rise above that dream world. I find myself believing that this environment influences you in some way, that my perception is true within some degree of certainty, but I've brought myself to another place. The very source of a promise is no longer present, and then I feel a distance, making connections where they're not due, and now I no longer can see you through this. I've brought myself to another place. In conclusion, skepticism from the perspective of the quote outsider, end quote, is to prioritize the inner, introspective world over the external, outer world, where our actions can be observed and our interactions defined. This may lead to solipsism, if pushed too far, an inner world that defines the extent of our actions. I believe that skepticism can lead to doubt, but only insofar as it's necessary to maintain this inner worldview. Most of the time, this is an external doubt embodied within the skeptic itself. Thank you for listening.